multitasking a little bit. I do want to say, and if you came to the class last year, you may remember that, how can I get this pop-up off? I don't want this on that. Wasn't that a funny one, Mr. Martin? Should I really tell it? Should I really tell that joke? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to tell that joke. No, I can't because she's streaming it live and recording it and stuff. I won't. It was a good joke, though. It was a good. I'm so tickled. That was a really good joke. It works better with profanity. If I use profanity, something went really wrong. That's not common for me at all. Has to have gone really badly. All right, so I do want to say this because I say it at the beginning of each of the bylaws classes and our elections clinic classes. These classes do not change very much from year to year. There's usually a tweak here and there, but the info is typically not going to change drastically from year to year on this particular class, okay? So if you have already taken this class and you'd rather not take it again, but you're concerned you might miss something, you really don't have to, because it will be more of what you learned. I mean, the same thing you learned last year. However, if you need a refresher, which is fine, please do stick around, because I would much rather you have the information and not need it than need it and not have it. So please do stick around for this info. All right, Sam, are we ready to pull up the thingamajigam? Because if not, I really can. I know you were a little delayed. If you want me to tell my joke, I'm happy to tell my joke. Y'all want me to tell? It looks like people really want me to.
Yeah,
okay, so let's practice. Let's practice raising hands. If you would like to raise your hand, click on the reactions button at the bottom of the screen and it says raise hand. If you want me to tell this joke before we start the class, click on the raise hand button and we'll see. I didn't make the motion, but I'm making a motion to tell my joke, and Mr. Martin seconded the motion. So now I just need to say, oh, we already have a majority. Yep. All right, we're good. So I'm going to tell my joke. You don't have to lower. I'll go ahead and lower all the hands. All right, so we're good. Okay, so I hope I can remember it. And I hope I can get through it without cracking up, because I'm just so tickled by this joke. Okay, so an older man was really concerned that his wife was losing her hearing. And he noticed that, she had not really been hearing him over time. So he was like, we need to make an appointment with the doctor so she can see the doctor and get tested for hearing aid or whatnot. So he calls the doctor and he's like, doctor, my wife has really not been able to hear lately. And I think she might be she might be hard of hearing. I'd like to get her, get an appointment to bring her in for a test, etc. So the doctor's like, okay, well, I'll schedule the appointment for her to come in. But in the meantime, you can do an at-home test just to gauge how bad the problem really is. So he said, okay, tell me what to do. And the doctor told him to stand about 40 feet away from his wife and talk in a normal tone and see if she responds or if she hears him. And then if that doesn't work, go about 30 feet away and then try about 20 feet and then 10 feet, etc., and see at what point she's able to hear you. So that evening, he is in the living room and he realizes that she's in the kitchen. He realizes this is about 40 feet. So let me try it now. And he says to her, hey, honey, what's for dinner? Normal tone of voice. She doesn't answer. So he's like, all right. So then he moves into the dining room, which is about 10 feet closer. So now he's 30 feet away and he says, hey, honey, what's for dinner? She still doesn't answer. He's like, this is actually worse than I thought. Then he moves up 20 feet and moves up 10 feet and he's 20 feet away. And he says, hey, honey, what's for dinner? Would you believe she still doesn't answer? So then he goes to the kitchen door. He's like, all right, I'm in the kitchen. I'm 10 feet away. She's got to hear me at this point. And he goes, hey, honey, what's for dinner? Still no answer. He walks up behind her and he whispers in her ear. Well, he doesn't whisper. He goes into her ear and he says, hey, honey, what's for dinner? And she said, for the 5th time, chicken. Thank you, Wanda. Did y'all get it? Is that a delayed reaction? Y'all get it? Y'all get
Where's
it?
my virtual tomato?
What was
like
that? I didn't hear whatever that was. Somebody said something. That was a good one though, right? All right. So thank you. And thanks to those of you that already heard me tell this joke and are still laughing as though you're hearing it for the first time, or for anybody who didn't think it was funny and laughed just to make me feel better. Thank you. All right. So Sam, are we ready? Thank you, Angeline. You're always so supportive. She said, will it let me start? Okay, I believe I can start. Let's see here. So we are, by the way, I should have said this as well. We're using, if you've been here before, you may recall that we used Mentimeter for a couple of our classes. And this is one of them. We are, let me move this out of the way. We're going to use Mentimeter, so please do grab your cell phone if you have one, or tablet or whatnot. And if you do not have a cell phone or a tablet, or you're for whatever reason unable to get to the Mentimeter, please do not worry. It is okay. I don't want anyone to ever feel stressed or left out because they're not able to participate in the Menti. All right, I'm going to share my screen. All right, here we go. And I'm using 2 screens, y'all. So if you see me looking away, it's because I'm looking at another screen, pardon me. And everybody can see my screen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, awesome, thank you. And I'm gonna give you a few minutes or a couple minutes to scan the code or to go to menti.com and enter the code. You can do one of the two. You can either scan the QR code or you can go to www.menti, that's M as in Mary, E as in Edward, N as in Nancy, T as in Thomas, I as in Isaac.com and type in 1910578 Again, menti.com, menti.com. And the code is 1910578 or you can scan the code.
1910.
Oh, Kelly, you didn't get the joke? Oh my gosh. I'll have to tell it to you later, Kelly. Or maybe you'll get it much later on. You'll be brushing your teeth, getting ready for bed and like, oh, I get it. That happens to me all the time. All right. Is everybody good? I'm trying to give you a little bit of time to get scanned in. Okay, I see one person needs a little bit, another minute or so. We'll give you another minute. So you're either going to scan the code or you're going to type in menti.com. And I do not see, yeah, Samantha, I don't see the, let me try to go to the next slide because I'm not seeing where, hold on, let me try it from my phone and make sure. yeah, I can see it on here, so. Okay, so everyone who signed in, who scanned the code and signed in, you should now see the same slide that you see on the screen. Can someone confirm that? Yeah, I see Ms. Gay is saying yes, Mr. Michael, perfect, okay. All right, so don't worry, y'all, I'm not gonna leave you behind because a couple people still look confused. So I'm gonna go right back to this screen and we're gonna give it about 60 seconds. If you don't get it in 60 seconds, that's okay. I promise you will not miss out on anything if you can't get in. Ms. Hardiman, do you have a question? You'll have to unmute yourself, ma'am.
Okay, I do have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's telling me on my phone that I have to create a Mentimeter account.
No, you don't.
Okay.
You scanned the code or you typed?
No, I just went to the website and found it.
Do you see where it says enter the code?
Yes, I did enter the code at the top.
Oh yeah, that's it. That's all you need to do then. It should say to participate in tonight's class.
Okay, let me see.
And
I
that's
have the
it.
same issue as Miss Hardiman when I scanned the QR code as well. So I ended up just going to the website on my phone and then punching in the code that you have, and it let me in.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Frazier.
I'm still trying to, it's still turning, so I guess it's still trying to let me in.
No, there's no let you in. So when you scan the code, it should take you to a screen that looks like this. I don't know if y'all can see that. And actually it's similar to what's on the screen in front of you on the computer.
Okay.
But
Maybe
again, seriously, don't, it's not that serious. If you can't get in, don't worry.
okay. Okay, because it's still rolling. It's still.
Yeah, that's your signal. It sounds like you don't have a strong signal, so it's still doing the, Miss Quintana.
I am to participate in tonight's class, but I don't see anything else.
That's where you should be. That's perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so right now everyone should be seeing a screen, whether you see it on your computer or on your phone. We should all see the same thing right now, which is to participate in tonight's class. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next slide. Okay, all right. Okay, so with that said, welcome to CD 1005, the Bylaws Clinic. And this should not be a community development class, actually, but that's okay. Welcome to the Bylaws Clinic. And we are going to talk a little bit tonight about our bylaws process. This class will be helpful for you if you are participating in the bylaws committee for your neighborhood association or NPU. It is geared towards NPU bylaws, but it may be helpful for you in other ways as well for neighborhood associations or other organizations, but it is geared towards neighborhood planning units or NPUs. As you may know, NPUs are required to submit their bylaws into the city every year for review and approval. And we do this clinic to make sure that the process goes as smoothly as it can possibly go. So with that said, real quickly, I'll go over our classroom rules. If you've been in our classes before, you already know what those rules are. You probably could say them just as well as I could. Please do keep your microphone muted at all times. If you do need to speak or if you have a question, please raise your hand. We practiced that at the beginning, so I know you all know how to do it. You'll just click on the raise hand, on the reactions button. I'll show you that in just a moment. I'll show you that in just a moment. Please keep your cameras on to receive course credit. That is only if that is applicable to you. If it's not applicable to you, you do not have to have it on. Although I will tell you, I do a much better class when I can see your beautiful faces. I much prefer to look at faces and smiles. That way, if you're confused, I can kind of see it on your face and know that I need to slow down or go back and say something again or clarify. So I appreciate the cameras on. I understand if you don't want to have it on. If you're taking this class for a credit, though, your camera does have to be turned on. To ask a question during Q&A, please raise your hand to get in the queue. And all questions must be relevant to course content. And if you don't mind indulging me, I'm going to say that just one more time. All questions must be relevant to course content. I know, listen, I live in the city too. I know that sometimes your trash doesn't get picked up, or they didn't put the can back where they were supposed to put it, or the stop sign's been down for 2 weeks. I get all of that. I understand the frustration. I live here too, but this isn't the session for that. If you're not happy about something the Atlanta City Council did, this is not the session for that, okay? Y'all, if you don't know, I'll tell you, you can call me or email me or text me at any time, and I'm happy always to connect you to whoever can help you with your problem if I can't resolve it myself. But please make sure that if you raise your hand to speak tonight, to ask a question tonight, please make sure that it is relevant to course content. The rest of the class will really appreciate that, all right? Okay. All right, so this is how you raise your hand. You'll click on reactions at the bottom of your screen. A pop-up box will appear. You'll click on raise hand at the bottom of that pop-up box, and that is how you raise your hand. We'll lower it for you. Don't worry about lowering it, but if you ever wanted to, you could follow those same steps and it will say lower hand and you'd lower it that way. All right, so for those that joined late or were still struggling with Menti, the code is at the top. You can go to menti.com, menti.com, and then click on, then type in 1910-5781. In the interest of time, if you can't get it to work for you, don't worry about it. All right. So at this time, you should see in your phone the same thing you see on your screen. What topic or section of your bylaws would you like to see updated in the near future? Thank you, Samantha. That's exactly what I see on my phone, and hopefully everyone else sees that on their phone as well. What topic or section of your bylaws would you like to see updated in the near future? There was, where is that lady? Let's see. I don't see, I can't remember her name and I don't see her. The lady who was trying to get in and couldn't. If you want to unmute yourself and answer the question, I can put it in there for you. Actual updates. All right, bylaws that are updated, revisions, vice chair term limits, public policy, actual updates, subcommittees, quorum, changes in agenda. Oh, changes in the agendas. Yeah. That's kind of covered in Robert's Rules of Order for the record, but understood. And not all the MPUs use Roberts. So officer positions. Anything else? We'll give it about maybe 15 more seconds. Quite a few people want to see term limits in there. I'm not going to take that as a sign, but you'll definitely want to see term limits. Membership. Okay. You want to see the membership section updated. All right. So by show of hands, this isn't part of the performance, but I am curious. How many of you, please raise your hand for me, and by raising your hand, you'll click on reactions and then you'll click where it says raise hand. Raise your hand for me if you have a copy of your NPU bylaws. All right, this is somewhat encouraging. Great stuff. This is encouraging. Okay. So how are people raising them and then lowering them? Why y'all lower your hand? Do you have them? You don't have 20 people? All right, 20 of you guys have your bylaws. We 21, that's good. I'm 22. I didn't raise my hand, but I also have a copy of my NPU bylaws as well. So I'm number 22. All right, so let me just say this. We will make sure that you get a copy of your bylaws, and I will tell you where you can find them very, very easily. Fun fact, the bylaws are linked at the bottom of all of your NPU agendas. Every single NPU agenda has a link to that NPU's bylaws at the bottom of the first page of the agenda. All right, so it looks like a lot of people rather want to see the term limits, updated membership, parliamentarian business, couple folks. Somebody said complete, not really sure what that means. Voting eligibility. To the person that said voting eligibility, if you're willing to unmute yourself, please feel free to tell me a little bit more about the voting eligibility changes that you'd like to see.
Hi, Leah. This is Chanella, and I'm actually mobile. So I'm just doing a lot at once. But that was my mission, and I would just like to, members that can vote.
You don't have a good connection, Chanello.
Can you hear me?
I can
Hi,
now.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry. Okay.
And now I can't.
Um,
If you can, if you're not driving, put it in the chat, Chanello. If you're not driving, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Otherwise, we'll wait till you have a better connection. And I also saw something else caught my eye too. I don't remember what it was, just that. Oh, dispute resolution. Dispute resolution. Wait, what in the world is going on? I don't know what's going on. Okay, I'm gonna keep it moving because I don't know what's happening. All right, so we'll get into the basics. I'm gonna breeze through this stuff. If I'm going too fast, raise your hand, tell me I'm going too fast. I do want to stick to our schedule and make sure I get you guys out of here. If not early, definitely on time. Why was the NPU system created? I would like to think that most of you already know this, which is why I'm going to go breeze kind of through it quickly. But I do see some new faces and some faces that I know are new to the NPU system. I'm very excited for that. The NPU system was created. The statement of policy and purpose is found in section 6-3011 of the Code of Ordinances. And for those of you that may not know this, the NPU system was created by Mayor Maynard Jackson, who was Atlanta's first Black mayor. And he created this system so that residents would have the opportunity to weigh in, to contribute, to participate in city government, and to give recommendations on the matters that affect livability, specifically on the CDP, or the Comprehensive Development Plan. If you did that math real quickly, then you know that next year is our big 5-0. We're turning 50 next year. We're very excited about that. And I'm going to say it every chance I get because we're going to be celebrating real big all year in 2024. So the council finds that it's in the public interest for the city of Atlanta to have an organized program of neighborhood planning. And it's the purpose of that article to provide an opportunity for citizens to formally provide input in the CDP, or Comprehensive Development Plan of the city, and to provide a means by which information concerning the operation of city government can be provided to the citizens of Atlanta. Further, it is the policy of the city to coordinate the recommendations of the NPUs with the formulation of the city's budget, both capital and operating, in order that the CDP, or Comprehensive Development Plan, be an effective policy guide for the orderly development of the city. The CDP is intended to be an effective policy guide for the orderly development of the city. We do have a CDP class coming up, I think in August or so, something like that, an introduction to the CDP. So if you don't know what that is, no worries, you'll learn in just a couple months. All right. So the function of bylaws, generally speaking, bylaws are the foundational documents of an organization. They exist to give an organization structure. They define the organization's primary characteristics. They define how the organization functions and the rights and duties of members. That's why I asked you if you have a copy of your bylaws, because if you don't, if you're a member of the NPU system, and to be clear, anyone who lives in the city of Atlanta is a member of the NPU system, and anyone who represents a business that is located in the city of Atlanta is a member of the NPU system. So if you live here, you are a member. It doesn't matter if you've never been to a meeting before, you are a member of the NPU if you live in the city of Atlanta, or if you own a business or represent a business that is located in the city of Atlanta, then you are a member. You do not know your rights as a member if you do not have your bylaws. You would not believe how many people actively participate in the NPU and have never seen their bylaws. You have to know your bylaws, because if you don't know your bylaws, you don't know what rights you have as a member. You don't know what you can and cannot do. You also don't know what responsibilities and what authority your officers, your elected officers have if you don't have your bylaws. All of that information is housed in your NPU bylaws, or neighborhood association bylaws, or sorority bylaws, or church bylaws, or whatever. All of the organization's bylaws contain that information, the rights and the duties of the members. Bylaws should include the rules that an organization deems to be so important that they cannot be changed without previous notice to the members and without the vote of a large majority. This is really not going to work because this monitor is so far over that I can't really see it. Okay, that's better. Sorry about that, y'all. All right, so grab your phones and let's do a quick quiz. Tell me, I'm gonna grab mine too, because I know the answer. So if nobody else gets it right, I'm gonna get it right. Tell me who can vote on bylaws. If you don't see this on your screen, there should be a blue button at the top that says go to next slide or something like that. Click on that to go to where we are. And you should see who can vote on bylaws. Is it A, only adults who reside in the NPU, only adults who reside or work in the NPU, only adults who have attended 3 or more NPU meetings, it depends on the bylaws, none of the above, or all of the above? And I will give it about, let's say 10 more seconds. You can sing the Jeopardy song silently in your head, or if you promise to remain on mute, you can sing it out loud. I'll sing it in my head, so y'all don't have to hear me singing. All right, we'll give it a couple more seconds. And for those of you that may have just joined, I think only one more person just joined, but you can go to menti.com from your phone, menti.com, MENTI, and type in the code that you see at the top of the screen, 19105781. All right, so it looks like 39% of the people said it depends on the bylaws. And sadly, that's a majority of y'all. So most of y'all think that it depends on the bylaws. That's incorrect, but have no fear. I can't see who chose the wrong answer, so don't be embarrassed. Nobody knows that you chose the wrong answer unless you have that look on your face like, It's the only way we'll know. Don't worry about it. 7% said none of the above, 18% said all of the above, 14% said only adults who reside in the MPU, 14% said only adults who reside or work in the MPU, and 7% said only adults who have attended 3 or more MPU meetings. Somebody's nodding their head like that's correct, but it's not. Okay, so listen, it's a bit of a trick question. And really, so technically the answer is none of the above, but don't worry, because that's not really the right answer. It's not the answer I wanted y'all to choose anyway, okay? If someone had chosen none of the above, I would have told them they were right, but that's not the answer I wanted you to choose. The answer I wanted you to choose is only adults who reside or work in the MPU. The reason that I'm pointing out this technicality is just that working in the MPU is not really enough to make you a member of the MPU. You have to actually own or represent a business in the MPU, not just work at Macy's over at, or Dillard's over at Atlantic Station. And because you work there, you're not a member of MPUE just by working at Dillard's. You're a member if you live in the MPU or you represent a business in the MPU, own or represent. Those are the people who can vote on bylaws. All MPU members, if you're taking notes, you have to write this part down. All MPU members can vote on bylaws, and all residents of Atlanta over the age of 18, I should have said that part, 18 or over actually, not over 18, but 18 or older. If you live in the city of Atlanta, you own a business in Atlanta, or you represent a business in Atlanta, and you're 18 years or older, you are a member of the MPU and therefore can vote on bylaws. I'm taking my time to say that because of the data that you see on the screen in front of you. It lets me know that y'all didn't know this, and I want to make sure you know this. It looks like only about 14% of you were kind of close with that. Jared, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead. And hey, Jared, congratulations on your designation recently.
Thank you very much. Would you describe in better detail represent a business?
Yes, that's a good question. Thank you. So a business that is housed in Atlanta can identify a representative, a person that will speak for them or participate in the MPU for them. Many MPU's bylaws outline how that works. So whether the business has to send something in writing to the MPU to say Jared Evans is representing Leah's House of Plants. I own a house of plants on Peachtree. I can't attend the MPU meetings, or I'm so busy running the shop that I'll have my community engagement person attend the meetings for me. And I will designate that person to participate in the MPU for me. That's my representative. That's the representative of my business. How that works is largely dependent upon the MPU's bylaws, but the business does have a right to participate in the MPU one way or another, dependent on the bylaws. Does that make sense? Yes? Okay, great. Mr. Bell.
So a business can only have one representative. Is that the same for families, or can every member of the family 18 or older vote?
You're a little bit ahead of me. We actually cover that a little later in the presentation, but that's a timely question. And the answer to that question is that that does not apply to families. Any adult 18 or older who lives in an MPU can vote on bylaws. So the code, and I think the next screen shows this, I hope. We'll go on to the next screen right now. I don't see any other hands raised. And it's not there, but I'll get that. Oh, it is there. Okay, great. Sorry, my apologies. So what are the requirements for MPU bylaws? Number one, they have to be submitted no later than September 30th of every year, and they become effective January 1st of the following year. That's in the code. That has not changed. They have to be submitted to the Department of City Planning, that's my office, no later than September 30th of every year. Number two, the MPUs must attach the Code of Ordinances, section 6-3011 through 6-3019 to their bylaws before they submit them to the city. So you're not just sending your bylaws, you're sending your bylaws and that section of the code attached to it. I wasn't here when the code was written, but I believe the purpose of that is to make sure that residents who get a copy of the bylaws know the rights that they have that are given by the code. Not just what the bylaws say, you also know what the code says because it's attached to your bylaws, or should be. And number 3, there can be no restrictions on a resident's right to vote on bylaws. The Code of Ordinances says that there can be no restrictions on a resident's right to vote on bylaws. That means if you just moved into the NPU today, you just got your keys today and you just moved in, and the NPU is voting on bylaws tonight, you can vote on those bylaws. It means that if you've never been to a meeting, maybe you lived there 60 years, maybe your house, the family's been in your house for 4 generations, but you never attended an NPU meeting, you can still vote on NPU bylaws. Let's say you own the coffee shop on the corner. You don't participate in the NPU, but you own that coffee shop on the corner and you show up at the NPU meeting that night. You can vote on bylaws. There may be no restrictions at all on a resident's right to vote on bylaws. Ms. Stanley, hi neighbor. Your mic is still muted.
Check the chat.
Check the chat. Yes, ma'am.
I put it in the chat.
Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, that's a good question. Can I read your question out loud? Okay, so Ms. Stanley wants to know, why does the NPU require you to attend at least 3 meetings? That does not pertain to bylaws. The NPU can have voting restrictions in their bylaws for voting matters. For example, you want to build a fence. You want to put a fence up, but you want to, no, let's say a carport, because that's a real one that I saw recently. You want to install a carport in your property, but you need a variance to do it because it's going to be closer to the neighbor's house than the code allows. That's called the setback, that area between your house and their house. It's the setback, and you're going to be closer than the code allows. So you apply for a variance. That variance application goes to the NPU. The NPU can have restrictions on your right to vote on that variance if you've never been there before. That depends on the NPU's bylaws. I hope I'm not confusing you, because I'm hearing it and it sounds a little confusing. So let me say it this way. When your NPU votes to adopt bylaws, you have the right to vote on those bylaws, period. Nothing, per the code, nothing can restrict your right to vote on bylaws, but that is not the case for other votes. So elections, your NPU might say you have to attend 3 meetings before you can vote on elections. Your NPU might say you have to attend 2 meetings and submit a utility bill before you can vote on elections or before you can vote on that variance application. They can do that. They just can't restrict your right to vote on bylaws. Ms. Whiteside?
Yes, thank you, Leah. My question has to do with whether or not what we're speaking on tonight is strictly NPU bylaws, or can I cross-reference this information to neighborhood association bylaws?
No, for neighborhood associations, you'll have to chew the meat and spit out the bones. Some of this can apply to neighborhood associations, but this part where it says, what are the requirements for NPU bylaws? This is what the Code of Ordinances says for NPUs, not neighborhoods. This part is for the neighborhoods. And I'll try to, thank you for that question. I'll try to remember to make a reference to things that could apply to neighborhoods. This part does not.
Okay.
Although, let me say this, because this is actually a good point to say this. There have been, over the last couple of years, a lot of conversations in neighborhood associations about aligning their processes to the NPU's process. And a neighborhood association could consider whether they want to adopt a similar rule for bylaws. Maybe a neighborhood association requires that you pay dues in order to be a member. But when it comes to bylaws, you don't have to be a dues paying member to vote on bylaws. Maybe they could do that if they wanted to. But in terms of what the law says, what the code says, that applies to NPUs only, not to neighborhood associations.
Okay.
All right. All right. So quickly, are NPU bylaws required to be approved by the city of Atlanta? I'm opening up my phone. Are NPU bylaws required to be approved by the city of Atlanta? Uh-oh, mine didn't go in. All right, we've got 87%, 82%. Some of y'all are still voting. We'll give it about another 15 seconds or so. Our NPU bylaws required to be approved by the city of Atlanta. All right, so 81% of you said yes, 19% of you said no. Once again, don't worry, I can't see who said no, but the right answer is yes. Yes, NPU bylaws are required to be approved by the city of Atlanta. All right, so this is what we are required to approve. All right, so my team just had, a couple people from my team just had this conversation earlier today. I just realized I did not introduce myself or my team today. I was really thrown off. I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a long day. I'm Leah. I'm a little late, but I'm Leah, and I'm joined tonight by Samantha Terry, who's the program manager for training and education. All right, so the requirements of NPU bylaws are they must be reviewed by the Department of City Planning, that's my department, and reviewed for these three things. If you're taking notes, jot this down or screenshot it. Clarity as to voting procedures. That means the voting procedures have to be clear. Representativeness of all interested parties. That's where we get stuck a little bit with some of these bylaws. We have to review and approve for representativeness of all interested parties. Description of the duties of any subcommittees or officers. If you have subcommittees, you do have officers, that has to be described. What they do has to be described in the bylaws. Those three elements are in the Code of Ordinances. That's what we call codified. Those have been codified, so there's no room for my team or for you to stray from that. There's no flexibility there at all. Same thing with the due date, by the way. People are always asking me every year if they can turn them in late, but I'm not gonna, that's like asking me if you can speed through a red light. I'm not gonna tell you you can run the light or break the law. No, I'm not telling you that. They're due on September 30th, and that's when they're due. And we have to review them for clarity of voting procedures, representativeness of all interested parties, and a description of the duties for your subcommittees and your officers. I don't see any hands, so we're gonna move on. All right, we'll talk quickly about encouraging civic participation. How can NPU or neighborhood association bylaws, this is a part where the neighborhood association can be considered. How can NPU or neighborhood association bylaws be used to encourage participation? How can, is that, I thought that was an interactive one, is it not? No, it's not. Okay. How can NPU or neighborhood association bylaws be used to encourage participation? I just want you to be thoughtful about that, but if you have any feedback, if you want to answer the question or give feedback, you can. We'll move on to the next slide in the meantime, though. We're going to talk about how you can use bylaws to encourage participation. So You'll have each NPU, sorry, has a bylaws committee. Most of the NPUs have a bylaws committee. I have seen an NPU that does not. There might be more than one, but I can think of one for sure that does not have a bylaws committee. Some of them are standing committees and some of them are ad hoc committees. A standing committee is a permanent, for lack of a better term, a permanent committee that exists per the bylaws. An ad hoc committee is usually a temporary committee. It's a committee that maybe you want to plan a party. So you'll do a party planning committee for Angelin's birthday. So this is the committee to plan Angelin's birthday. That's an ad hoc committee because when her birthday is over, the committee doesn't need to exist anymore, okay? And some people have their bylaws committee as ad hoc, meaning they form the committee just for that one period and then they dissolve the committee. I would suggest that it be a standing committee, but some people do have ad hocs. All right, so the first step is for, one second, Ms. Whiteside, the first step is for the committee to review the current bylaws. That's the first step. You got to review the bylaws. And then they'll start drafting proposed amendments. They may meet several times to draft some amendments, to look through and determine what may need to be updated, what may need to be edited. And then they'll draft some amendments. And then they'll distribute that draft. This right here is best case scenario. Like, this is best practice. This is not in the code. You're not required to follow this path. But these are our recommendations for how to have a very smooth, inclusive, and representative bylaws process. We have done this at multiple NPUs. In fact, I see my NPU's parliamentarian here tonight. We participated a couple of years ago in a major bylaw. Oh, and Miss Stanley was also on that committee. We participated in a major rewrite of our bylaws, and we followed this process, and it worked. I think it worked very well. Ms. Stanley is nodding her head. Yep, Ms. Stanley thinks it worked very well as well. It just really was so inclusive and so transparent. So after we proposed our amendments, we distributed the draft to all of the members, and we invited them to propose amendments. We had, actually, it's not here, but we actually had 2 public meetings for discussion so that people who got the draft could come into a meeting and say, I have questions about this, I have concerns, I don't like this, I think it should be that, I think it should be the other thing, etc. You want to invite proposed amendments. You have no clue how many times I get calls every year from people saying, and it's usually in October. Process that, because you know when they're due, right? September 30th. Usually in October, I start getting a bunch of calls from people who are very upset that they didn't know the NPU was voting on bylaws, or they wanted to propose an amendment and they didn't get to propose their amendment for one reason or another. They got to the meeting and the chairperson says, oh, we're not taking amendments tonight. You had to do that at the bylaws committee meeting. We had committee meetings. This is the recommendation from the committee, and this is what we're voting on tonight. All kinds of things happen. This is why we recommend this process right here. Once you've invited the proposed amendments, you get all of the proposals, you consider them. Now the committee can vote on what recommendations to incorporate. Just because Amanda raises her hand and says, I want to see that, I want to see it in the bylaws that the chairperson will pass out ice pops every second month or something like that. Just because she proposed that doesn't mean it has to go in the bylaws. The committee can say, yeah, we're not going to put that in there. Sorry, Amanda, you can buy your own popsicles or whatever. We're not putting that in there. And that's fine. It then goes, once the draft is finalized, it then goes to a public meeting for discussion. And then at the following NPU meeting, there is a vote and it's voted on and then submitted to the city. Now, what is not represented here, just for space reasons, we have a whole lot of space on the slide, we firmly recommend, and we did this in my NPU, that you introduce the bylaws 1 month, the revisions 1 month, let them sit with it for a month, and then vote on it the following month. Nobody should receive 20 pages of bylaws, 10 pages, whatever it is, even 2 pages of minutes, honestly, nobody should be receiving anything and expected to vote on it right then and there. That's not how it should work. You should get the bylaws 1 month in August, is my recommendation. And then in September, you're expected to vote on the bylaws. Okay, Ms. Whiteside, your hand is up.
Yes, thank you. My question was, does that standing committee review the bylaws once a year, or can they be revised throughout the year?
So the standing committees can review the bylaws as often as they want to review the bylaws. They can, and actually I was trying to think of an NPU that does that, and I just thought of at least one. They meet, I think their bylaws committee meets monthly or every other month at least, but they meet all year long. They're always proposing amendments and talking about ways to do it differently or ways to do it better or something they picked up from another NPU, et cetera. And they're working on the draft all year. They're presenting the draft to the body in July, August, something like that, June, July, August. They're presenting it to the body then, and then they're voting on it the following month. So you're not amending your bylaws all year long. You're amending them for your September 30th submission.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Okay. How can bylaws be used to protect members? I'm not really sure what this slide is supposed to do. Oh, okay, got it. So grab your phones, put your answer in here, and we're going to take a look. How can bylaws be used to protect members?
Quick question.
Ms. Whiteside, did you have a question? I don't know why this is not showing it. Oh, I had to click something. Okay. So here's some of the answers that y'all have. Voting rights, you can keep them coming. We'll keep reading them. Voting rights, clarifying duties and rights. Yeah, by having defined rules about expectations and rights. Keep hearing about rights. To ensure that their vote on the subject matter is considered and on the record. Transparency, so you know what is allowed and not hearsay. Bylaws can be put in place to make everything a fair and consistent procedure by the majority, describing the rights of the members, having a majority vote to remove, I think that may mean officers, voting rights, discussion rules. I haven't heard that one yet. That's a good one. Discussion rules, ensure proper communication, outline committees and participation. Absolutely. Make a clear time, place, and agenda for the meetings, fair rights, guidelines for decorum, that's a big deal. Freedom of speech, protect the right to vote, access to voting procedure. It avoids segregation based on income and wealth. Since those who have businesses or live in the NPU can vote, there is equal representation. Somebody said it's like the Bible if you're into that. Public policy. Bylaws give them a voice. They include standards of conduct, term limits, can protect against forever leaders imposing their own views. They protect the rights of neighbors, disciplinary proceedings, gives them the right to participate, protect members' rights, and bylaws define the rights members have. They cannot be taken away. I don't know who said that, but I love it. That's a good one. Multiple good ones, but we're ending on that one, and that's a good one to end on. Bylaws define the rights that members have, and they cannot be taken away. As long as you can point to the bylaws Somebody said it's like the Bible, if you're into that. If you can point to the bylaws, it's like, no, the bylaws say this. This is what we're doing. This is the rule. This is what it says. And it's even better if you know Robert's Rules of Order too. We have classes on that, so don't worry if you don't know. We have classes on that. I noticed a few extras that were added. Quorum, bylaws must be representative of interested parties. It's in writing, an ADA compliance to vote, the ability to remove officers, because what is written in the bylaws can always be referenced back to and validates movements. All right. Good stuff. Y'all get it. And I'm glad about that. All right. So we're going to talk a bit about avoiding common mistakes. Some of the lessons that we have learned along the way, because I learn something new every year. I'm telling you, every year we have bylaws. I'm learning something new. But you want to definitely include a clear and fair remedy for violations. Not part of this class, but we do have a class. I think it's the NPU 101 class, or Introduction to the NPU System. And we do, for those of you that are city employees, I see a couple of you here, or a few of you rather, I see at least 3. We also have a lunch and learn coming up. I think the email went out today or will go out tomorrow or something like that. But we have a lunch and learn coming up for city employees. And I will tell you, the NPUs are accountable to the members they represent, and that is in the code. The NPUs are accountable to the members they represent. I'm going to say that one more time because I really want to make sure y'all get that. The NPUs, and if you're on camera, you could say it with me. You don't have to unmute, I'll read your lips. The NPUs are accountable to the members they represent. Why did I say that 3 times? Because the NPUs are not accountable to the Department of City Planning. We're not the principal. And so often when officers violate bylaws, the members will call me or email me or stop by my office and want me to. I don't mind you stopping by or calling to discuss it, because I can always give you strategy. I can always give you tips. I can tell you what Robert's Rule says. I can tell you what your bylaws say. We can kind of talk through possible solutions for resolving the issues. But I can't punish your chairperson for you. And that's usually what people are wanting when they call me. The NPUs are accountable to the members that they represent. Okay? You have to have a clear and fair remedy for violations in your bylaws. If the bylaws are violated, there should be a clear remedy in most cases, okay? There needs to be a process for conflict resolution. Some years ago, the city actually prepared, this is before my time, so I can't take credit for it, but prepared a template for conflict resolution that many of the NPUs adopted it. Some did not, but some did. And it's still a good idea. But to be clear, Robert's Rules of Order also has a process in here. So even if you don't have it in your bylaws, that's okay. You can use Robert's Rules of Order to handle any conflicts. You want to include a fair and clear process for officer removal. That's a true story that happened. I had an NPU that needed to remove an officer and couldn't because there was nothing clear in the code on how to do that. So I referred them to Robert's Rules, and Robert's Rules requires a whole trial. And they were like, we're not going to do a whole trial just for this person. So they ended up not able to remove the officer when really simple language in the bylaws would have helped with that. You need to include a process for recognizing new neighborhood organizations. Again, true story. The first time I saw that was my first year in this role, 2019. I saw it again last year, a neighborhood organization, and the year before, just remember that one. Neighborhood organization wants to be recognized by the NPU. The NPU says, we're not recognizing any new neighborhood organizations. And the neighborhood org is like, what do you mean? That's a violation of my rights. Of course, you're going to recognize me. We live in the neighborhood. maybe the neighborhood organization has the same geographic boundaries as another neighborhood organization. Huh? True story. So let's see, let me find a person whom I know. Nicole Weisswasser. She is in MPUY, and Lakewood in her MPU has a neighborhood association. And for whatever reason, maybe the people there don't feel like the neighborhood association is serving them well, or maybe they don't like the night that the neighborhood association meets, or maybe they don't like the people. It happens all the time. This is real stuff, y'all. They form another neighborhood association. This is Lakewood number 2. And now that didn't happen in Lakewood, by the way. It has happened in multiple places across the city, but not Lakewood. I'm just using her for an example because I know her. So they then go to the MPU, they go to Nicole because she's the chairperson, and they say, we want to be recognized by the MPU. We want to be added to the agenda as a neighborhood organization. We want to be called upon when it's time to give neighborhood organization updates. We want you to send us the applications that you're routing to the neighborhood associations when it affects our neighborhood. We want to be included in the process. The MPU has to have language in the bylaws that tell them what to do in those situations. What are the guidelines? What's required of an organization in order to be represented by, recognized by the MPU? What's required? That has to be spelled out in the bylaws, okay? You have to ensure that one section of the bylaws does not contradict another. See that every year also. Clarify who can cancel a meeting and under what circumstances and with what notice. Because I've seen that too. I've seen a vice chairperson cancel a meeting when there was conflict between the chair and the vice chair. The vice chair canceled the meeting. The chair didn't cancel the meeting, but the vice chair did. The chair didn't authorize that. And make sure your bylaws are clear there, okay? If there are any meeting changes due to public emergencies, we added this part in, of course, at the onset of the pandemic. It became relevant then because it was a public emergency and all of a sudden NPUs couldn't meet, but many of them didn't have any procedures in their bylaws to help guide them through how to handle that. My own MPU was one of them, as a matter of fact. I remember us having a meeting in March to discuss what to do. Our MPU meeting would have been the following week. And the chairperson at the time was like, I'm not sure how to handle this because the bylaws don't say that we can just cancel the meeting this way. It doesn't say that we can have a teleconference for a meeting or whatnot. So you want to make sure that if you need to change your meeting, there's language in the bylaws that allow you to change the meeting, that authorize chairperson, executive board, majority of the members, however you want to handle that, but you need to have something in the code, in the bylaws. You want to consider policy statements, rules for voting procedures, and other sections that may need to be modified more often. The policy so bylaws typically are or should be harder to change. They typically will require a 2/3 majority or a 3/4 majority to change the bylaws. A policy statement could require the majority. An example of a policy statement, I'll use my MPU again. A couple of years ago, the chairperson that we had introduced some rules around, I forget what it was called, I'm sorry, but she introduced some rules around discussion, like how many minutes people got, and you couldn't speak more than once if the other people hadn't spoken. It was largely based on Robert's Rules of Order. That was a policy because that's a lot easier to change. And it's the kind of thing that you might need to change more frequently than the actual duties and rights of the membership. Does that make sense? Everybody get that? Yeah, okay, good. I see heads nodding, wonderful. And lastly, you want to outline the process for record keeping because we definitely have had some problems with that. Good news, our team is working on providing some technology solutions for NPUs to enhance their record keeping, but for now, that does not exist. And you need to have a process in your bylaws for record keeping. All right. We talked about how your bylaws can protect members. So these are all, oh, Miss Stanley, go ahead.
In the chat.
Okay, yes, ma'am. What happens when the bylaws do not address a current situation? You might be up a creek without a paddle. It depends. I mean, I would say if it's something that can't wait until the following year, give me a call or shoot me an email and I'll see what kind of advice we could give. Depending on what the situation is, if the bylaws don't address it, the first stop should be your rules of order. I think about 22 or 23 of the NPUs use Robert's Rules of Order. That is this book. That's the current edition, it's the 12th edition. And then we have the brief as well, which is a shorter version, a little more user-friendly. Most of the NPUs use Robert's Rules of Order as their rule of order. So if a situation is not covered in your bylaws, you can check Robert's Rules to see if Robert's Rules gives guidance on it, assuming your NPU is one of the ones that uses Roberts. And ours, Ms. Stanley, is. So you could certainly check Roberts. You could also give me a call if you want, and I can kind of walk you through it or talk you through it. All right, so these are true stories. An outgoing officer asserts that the NPU's social media, website, and other items are the intellectual or other property of that officer. So Ricky Johnson used to be the chairperson of his NPU, and they voted him out. He's no longer the chairperson of that NPU, but he's the one that created the website. He's the one that started the Facebook page. He's the one that started the Instagram page. It's all in Ricky Johnson's name. And he feels like because he put his blood, sweat, and tears into that website, it's his website. He doesn't really care who the new chairperson is. He built that thing. And if the new chairperson wants a website, then they can build their own website themselves. Right, Mr. Johnson? He said that's right. Okay. He didn't really say that's right. That's bad. Don't y'all think that's bad? That's a problem. Your bylaws need to make real clear, and I believe we drafted some language on this not long ago to assist an NPU that was going through that. But your bylaws need to be real clear that anything that's created for the NPU is the property of the NPU, belongs to the NPU, not to the individual. Okay. A neighborhood association votes to support an event application. The NPU votes to oppose it. All right, y'all got that? So ADNA, that's the Atlanta Downtown Neighborhood Association, voted to support the Peachtree Parade. Then it goes to NPUM the following Monday, and NPUM votes to oppose it. The neighborhood association goes back to the bylaws and says, well, the bylaws say that the NPU has to support the decision of the neighborhood association. Talk to me, y'all. Tell me how do we square that circle, as a friend of mine says. Mr. Johnson, you have a question?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Ricky Johnson. I want to make sure that I'm not the person you just referred to, and I don't want that to get mixed up with me.
I was using you as an example. You are not the chairperson that stole the social media password.
Thank you. I just want to make sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely not.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Okay, so what do y'all do? The neighborhood association voted to support it. The NPU voted not to support it, but the bylaws say that the NPU shall, and y'all know what shall means, it's not optional, the NPU shall support the decision of the neighborhood association. I just want to hear one or two people give me some logic on that.
If the neighborhood association says it, that's it. The NPU has to go along with the association. based on the bylaws.
How? Tell me how.
It affects that certain neighborhood, doesn't it? It affects
Yes.
it. Okay, then they have first priority. They got first vote. They can say yay or nay.
So let's talk through that. You're in Harville Homes? Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So there's a parade through Harville Homes and your neighborhood association votes to support it. This
Okay.
right here, this class right here, we're the NPU.
Okay.
So you make the motion to support it, right? Because your neighborhood association supports it. And we all vote no.
Why would you vote no and we vote yes?
Because we don't want it. We have other reasons that we don't want it. Last time when they did it through the neighborhood, they left trash everywhere. They didn't end at 6 like they said they were going to end at 6. And just because y'all believe them doesn't mean we have to believe them.
But you shouldn't have the last say so in that. We should, because it affects us.
But how do you make me vote your way? I'm an individual member protected by code. I have the right to vote how I see fit. How do you make me vote your way? How do you make any of these folks in the room vote your way?
Referring back to the bylaws state you have to do it. That won't work.
Nope, I'm gonna come back to that in just a second. Angela?
It says that the neighborhood association refers to the bylaws, which state that the NPU shall support the decision of the neighborhood association. So because they have no say-so. It states it in the bylaws that they shall support the decision of the neighborhood association. So they can't refuse to vote. They can refuse to vote, but in the bylaws, they have to.
So what do you do? And this is hypothetical because I'm gonna move on to Ms. Whiteside. But what do you do, Angeline, if you feel strongly that this event should not happen? You feel very strongly that it should not happen.
So,
Are you then required to vote against your own interest? Ms. Whiteside?
So yes, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I
will.
I know you will. I have experienced that some NPU meetings, their committees can override a neighborhood.
No, that's not true. So yeah, I'll have to get back to that, but that's not actually what you think you saw is not what you saw. The committee can make a recommendation, but the body is who actually votes. The committee can only make a recommendation.
Okay,
Yes,
that's what that's my experience. They have their recommendation has been in opposition, but they
can do that.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
They can absolutely do that. If the neighborhood association says we support this and the zoning committee or the events committee reviews the matter, they review the application and they decide that they can't support this, the zoning committee can indeed have a different recommendation than the neighborhood, for sure.
Yeah.
Ms. Brooks?
That's exactly what I'm referring to. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So the NPU does not have, I mean, even though it states that they shall support the decision of the neighborhood association, we have a right also to say that we don't support it, even though it is written in the bylaws.
I'm going to come right back to that. I'm going to see if Ms. Brooks can unlock the code to this. And if she can't, I'll give y'all the secrets. And they chose tonight. Listen, they chose tonight to vacuum. I'm sorry. If y'all can hear that, please accept my apologies.
Can't hear it.
We can't hear it.
So what I don't understand is why would the general body have to vote on something if the bylaw says that they have to follow what the neighborhood association recommends? It's just telling the body that it doesn't matter how you vote, we have to follow the neighborhood recommendation. However, if the neighborhood association recommends to support an event application because 5 voted yes and 2 voted no, then that brings into question the representativeness of that association, which should have been clarified in the bylaws as well, because 5 people voting and 2 against doesn't represent an entire community. And so then I would feel that the NPU should act on, with some amount of information to then make that decision as an NPU.
Okay, Leah, we had
Mhm.
something happen recently. Someone brought up a permit for an event at the NPU meeting. When it was basically presented, it was kind of talked down, but it had not been to the neighborhood. So it went to the neighborhood and they voted yes, it was okay to have the event. So it was voted on again at the NPU and passed based on the neighborhood saying yes.
Mhm. Yeah, that can happen. So here's the key that I think is missing here. So I'm going to give y'all the secret. Every individual member of the NPU has the right to vote on any matter that comes before the NPU. And if you have the right to vote on any matter that comes before the NPU, then you have the right to vote however you see fit. You have the right to like something or to not like something. You have the right to support something or to not support it. You have the right to say yay or the right to say nay. The trick here is that the bylaws should not say that the NPU shall support the decision of the neighborhood association because it's not enforceable. You can't make me raise my hand to say yes if I want to say no. If I oppose this project, there's no bylaws in the world that can make me raise my hand and say, yeah, this is my own hand. And I have the right to raise it for whatever I want to raise it for and lower it for whatever I want to lower it for. You all have that right as individuals who are members of an NPU. Your NPU's bylaws cannot require you to vote to support anything or to vote to oppose anything at all. You have the right to vote as you see fit. So the answer to this whole dilemma is that the bylaws should never say that the NPU shall support XYZ.
Okay.
However, Ms. Stanley raised a good point in the beginning when she was about to go back and forth with me about, but the neighborhood likes it. But what if the neighborhood, I'm gonna tell you what the solution is. And I believe we did this in my NPU. We've certainly done it in other NPUs who felt the same way. What you should do if you really want to respect the position of the impacted neighborhood, or you want to give them a greater voice because it impacts their neighborhood, you can write into your bylaws that the first opportunity to make a motion goes to the neighborhood association, to the impacted neighborhood association. So there could be a motion from the neighborhood association to support it, or the chairperson, I think that's what they do in my view, the chairperson can say, is there anybody from Grove Park who wants to make a motion? You could do it that way. It's a little trickier that way because Grove Park may not be in agreement. One person may say yes and one person may say no, and then it's like a race to the mic. But the point is that there are ways to handle this, and the way that you handle it is not to include in the bylaws that the NPU shall support this or shall do XYZ, because the NPU is made up of individual members. Does everybody get that?
Okay, I got another question.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand about the language. Who reviews, and I know the city planning reviews the NPUs. Would they catch something like this? Or should they catch something like this?
So catch it, yes. We catch everything in bylaws. We currently have lots of bylaws that have very bad things in them.
Okay, do you send it back to the NPU?
In theory, yes. So let me clarify though, send it back doesn't mean we will not approve this, take it back. What it means is we'll put a memo, a note together and say, hey, we strongly recommend that you change this and here's why. Call me if you want to discuss it further. We've not had a problem yet with an NPU saying, no, we're not going to change that when we strongly recommend that they change something. We haven't had that issue yet.
Okay.
But we definitely have, I don't want to take up time on that right now, but we do have a backlog of bylaws review every single year. It takes us forever to get through all 25 of them because it's a lot. And we have a very small team. All right, so a neighborhood association cancels their meeting. The bylaws require a recommendation from the neighborhood before the NPU can vote. So to put it in real time, Ms. Wanda goes to NPUL. She's in Vine City. Vine City Civic Association cancels their meeting, but the NPUL bylaws require a recommendation from the neighborhood before the NPU votes. So the NPU will say, we can't vote on this until Vine City gives us a recommendation. But Vine City didn't meet last month. I'm gonna give you the cheat code, okay? Don't put that in your bylaws. Don't put that in your bylaws, okay? The reason for that is that it is just too tricky. Like if you're an NPU expert and you've been doing this as long as you've been doing anything, and you know the code like the back of your hand, you know Robert's rules like the back of all of that, then you can probably work it in a way that works. Most of us are not NPU experts, bylaws experts, or Robert's rules experts. We're just not. So it's much safer to not include that in your bylaws. And the reason I say that is that the NPU is responsible for voting on multiple different types of applications. Those types of applications have different rules at the city. You have a lot more leeway in terms of your timeline with a zoning application than you do with a special event or an alcohol license application. You do not have the space to defer an alcohol license applicant or to defer them again or to defer them again and again. You can't do that. With the zoning application, there's a little bit more room, and if your request is reasonable, if your deferral is reasonable, then you can. So the best thing to do is not to require a recommendation from the neighborhood. Just soften the language a bit. If you want to, if that's important to you, soften the language and just say something along the lines of a neighborhood association should submit a recommend, or if a neighborhood association wants to be considered, wants their recommendation to be considered, they must submit it no later than 5 days before the NPU meeting or something like that. So you're still encouraging the neighborhood's recommendation, but you're not allowing the neighborhood to control the timeline of the NPU's conducting its business, okay? Number 4 says, according to the bylaws, only one adult in the household can vote on any given item. That's Mr. Bell's question from earlier. I have currently 3 sets of bylaws from 2020, voted on 2022, effective January 1, 2023, that said just that. Only one adult in the household can vote on any given item. Mayor Maynard Jackson did not give NPU membership to your house. Your house is not the member. The individuals who live in the house are the members. Anyone 18 or older. So yeah, if you've got 19 children and they all 18 and over and they live in that house with you, yeah, they all get to vote. And some folks don't like that because they feel like one household can sway a vote. Then one household can sway a vote. Any adult 18 or older who lives in the NPU or represents a business in the NPU has the right to vote on all matters that come before the NPU in accordance with the bylaws. All right. Lastly, the majority of the exec board members are business representatives. These are all true stories, y'all. Residents assert that non-residents are voting against the interests of the residents. So the whole executive board, or most of the executive board, is made up of investors or made up of other business owners. Not one resident on the entire executive board, maybe except the chairperson, because the code requires that the chairperson be a resident. The vice chair, secretary, the second secretary, the treasurer, the parliamentarian, the whoever, these are all non-residents. What do you do? In the interest of time, I'll give you the cheat code. The solution there is that you want to include in your bylaws requirements for officers. Maybe you want to require that no more than 50% of the officers can be stakeholders or non-residents, or no more than 40%, or no more than 2 of the officers, whatever. You all can do whatever works for your MPU, but if that's something that matters to you. Now, to be fair, that's not a problem in most MPUs, because most MPUs have predominantly residents. But there are some MPUs that don't run that way. So you definitely want to consider that. All right. We're coming up on the end. So some points to ponder. Think about this. I'm going to run through it real quickly. If you need to interrupt, please do. Just raise your hand. Who owns, this is what you want to consider, okay? Who owns MPU property? Remember, we talked about that. Physical property and intellectual property. Who owns it? Consider baking that into your bylaws. Who has the passwords? Are your committees active? Are they functional? Are they necessary? We had big debates on that in my MPU when we were changing the bylaws. Nobody wants to be the person to remove the public safety committee, for example, or the education committee, because you look like a monster for taking out the education committee. But when's the last time the education committee had a meeting? Better yet, when's the last time the education committee had a chairperson? No one is stepping up to be the chair. No one is stepping up to be the members of this committee. So you need to go back to the body and say, hey, this committee has been defunct for 4 years. We don't need to have it. If y'all don't want to be on the committee, then we need to go ahead and take the committee off of the bylaws, out of the bylaws. If we need an ad hoc, we can always add an ad hoc. Think about that though. Think about whether they're functional and whether they're necessary. One of the things we did is we created, and I'm actually talking to another MPU right now about doing something similar. We created, I forgot the name of the committee, but it was a committee that combined a bunch of other committees because all of those committees were unpopulated. There was nobody on those committees. So we combined them into one committee that handled the work of all those other committees. Think about whether the structure in your bylaws allow neighborhoods to make critical neighborhood specific decisions for other neighborhoods. That happens a lot too. If one neighborhood, Harville Homes, where Miss Stanley lives, that's a small neighborhood. If they feel strongly about something, they can easily be outvoted by another neighborhood in the MPU. You have to think about how you can address that in your bylaws. Can residents vote absentee or by proxy? You have to think about that. Are officers required to have residency in the MPU? You have to think about that. The code says that the chairperson must have their primary place of residence in the MPU, but it only says that for the chairperson, not the vice chair. But you can decide for your bylaws whether you believe the vice chair should be required to live in the MPU as well, or the secretary. But give that thought. Like when you're thinking about this, make sure you think about what can go wrong. And I said that to my MPU when we were doing our rewrite. Don't just think about how good it sounds, think about what could go wrong. Because let's say we do require officers to have residency in the MPU, but the only person that's interested in being the secretary, which y'all know is a hard job to fill, the only person that's interested in being the secretary doesn't live in the MPU. They own a business there. They're really active. They don't miss meetings. They come every single month. They just don't live there. They come to the cleanups. They're clearly dedicated to the community, but they don't live there. So think about that kind of stuff. Don't just propose the amendment, but really think about the ramifications of that proposed amendment. What would make meetings more efficient and more participatory? Think about that, because we can definitely use some improvements around efficiency in these meetings. When can bylaws be revised? When do these revisions take effect? Do your bylaws promote recommendations that represent as many residents and businesses as possible, to Ms. Brooks' earlier point? These are points to ponder. All right, so there's some recommended base language here. I'm not going to read that right now because this is actual language that we send out, and I believe Samantha will send out this presentation to y'all. Is that right, Sam? Yes? No? She's on the phone. Okay. But anyway, we could definitely send you the language This is recommended language that we've sent to MPUs who are requesting recommended language on virtual meetings, on hybrid meetings, et cetera. And if there's any subject at all that you need recommended language on, you can let us know and we'll prepare some recommended language for you if we don't already have it. Policy statements, as I said earlier, these can be used to define rules for virtual meetings, okay? Such as any members participating in virtual meetings must register using their full names. That's not something you want to put in your bylaws at all. Good for a policy statement though. Family members who are eligible to vote and attending together must list all eligible and present voters. That's very helpful for those that are meeting virtually, and it's you and your husband and your sister-in-law, and you all live in the house together and you're all participating in the MPU meeting, but the screen only says Angela and Sabir. No, you need to let us know that it's not, especially if your camera's off and we can't see the person, then we need to know who's there and who's voting. The secretary would appreciate that, I'm sure. Anyone making a motion or seconding a motion must identify themselves by stating their name. In the beginning of the pandemic, the MPUs were really good with that. I think people got a little comfortable and kind of stopped announcing their names, but it is still important, especially for MPUs where someone is calling in and they can't see who's saying what. But frankly, even in a meeting such as this, where we're all here in the Zoom, we're not on the phone, we can see each other. If someone says, I second, and they say it just like that, I may not be able to see real quickly who said that. And as a member, I have the right to know who seconded that motion. So you can include in your policy statement that anyone who is making or seconding a motion has to announce themselves by name if you wanted to. Votes to approve agendas and minutes shall be conducted by unanimous consent unless a member objects. Unanimous consent just means you don't have to go through the entire vote process. You can just say, if there are no objections, the motion is approved by unanimous consent. And it's best used on adopting an agenda where there is no contention, on adopting minutes where no one has any suggestions for changing the minutes or no amendments or revisions to the minutes. You can use unanimous consent then, and it saves a lot of time. Maybe to vote how you want people to vote, whether they use the yes or no buttons, or they use a poll, or they click on the raise your hand button, or whatever. All of your procedures can be included in a policy statement. Think about, should your meetings be recorded? Think about where the recordings will be stored, how long you'll retain them. Should the chat be open? Good Lord, that's such a controversial topic these days. Should the chat be open or should the chat be closed? Do you save the transcript? How do you use the mute button? I think we've calmed down a little bit from that, but in the first couple of years of the pandemic, there were a lot of issues with that mute button. Can the waiting room be mishandled or inappropriately used? Should meetings use the webinar function? We have a couple of MPUs that use webinar. Should notice be required for committee meetings? How much notice? How should that notice be given? Let's say Tiffany Buford is the chair of the zoning committee, and there's a really contentious item because they want to build a amusement park right on the next block over from where I live. And they're looking to rezone it. And they go to Tiffany's committee, to the zoning committee, and she knows that we all care about that. She knows we're all worked up and excited about this. She doesn't even tell us when the zoning committee meeting is happening. Tiffany, why do you do that? That's terrible. She doesn't even tell us when the zoning committee meeting is happening. So then we get to the MPU and the applicant is there and he's presenting, and we are all up in arms. All 40 of us are all up in arms. We're having a fit because we have questions for this applicant. And she says the motion out of committee is to approve the application. And we're like, approve it? Well, that's what that committee determined. And none of us were in the room because we didn't know about it. So it's always a good idea to publicize your committee meetings as best as you possibly can. If you have social media, get the word out that way. If you have a website, if your MPU has a website, put it on the website. If you have a email distribution list. Some MPUs do an exceptional job at that. If you are in one of those MPUs, be grateful. Some of them do that very, very well, and others not so well. How are committee members identified? That's another topic that gets a lot of discussion, usually only when people disagree with decisions coming out of the committee, but it does get a lot of discussion. Should a committee be considered a town hall, meaning anyone and everyone who lives in the MPU can participate in the committee? Or do you have to be an active voting member of that MPU in order to be on that committee? This is something that MPUs consider all the time. It's very important. Shonda? Hi, Shonda.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
My question is regarding the voting. Should voting be secretive, or is that up to what's written in the bylaws?
What's written in the bylaws.
Okay.
And if the MPU feels strongly that the vote should be private, the MPU should include that in the bylaws. If they don't want to do it that way, then they should, or they could include that, or they could just leave it open to the chair's discretion.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so some best practices as we get ready to wrap this up. Best practices for your bylaws process. You want to identify a bylaws committee. You want to outline the process and the timeline and share that widely. Let people know in April, the committee is going to come together and start reviewing the bylaws, making recommendations. In May, we're going to put our recommendations together into a draft. In June, we're going to send that out to the body. We're going to have a public meeting in June on this date at that time. And then in July, we're going to take your feedback and go back to the drawing board and try to incorporate it where we can. We'll have a second public meeting in July with that draft, with the second draft. And then in August, we're going to give you the draft to review for a vote in September. Publicize that timeline so people know what to expect. I'm telling you, I know for a fact that people can handle an outcome that people can handle when something doesn't go their way, as long as they know that the process was fair. If you know the process was fair and you got outvoted honestly, transparently, truthfully, then it just is what it is. You just lost. But if you think that that process was unfair, or you think that there was some shady business going on, you'll never let it go. True story. True story, seriously. All right, so you want to meet publicly and announce all those meetings. Don't meet at somebody's house. Not a good idea to meet at someone's house. There are exceptions. I'd rather not live in the exception. Just don't meet at somebody's house. Announce the meetings. Make it easy for residents to propose amendments. Don't make it complicated for a resident to propose an amendment to the bylaws. Ensure that all the members have a copy of their bylaws no later than July. The current bylaws, people still don't have copies of their bylaws, as evidenced by you guys tonight. Avoid using bylaws to address that, it must be a typo, but to accommodate, avoid using bylaws to accommodate one person or one group or a situation that's unlikely to reoccur. I see that quite regularly. Someone will do something that someone else doesn't like, and they'll say, we got to put this in the bylaws so they can't do that again. You don't want to do that, because you don't want to change your bylaws to accommodate one person. You want to change your bylaws in a way that makes sense. An example of that, there was a neighborhood association who was having trouble recruiting people to serve as officers. So they wanted to change the bylaws so that the term limits would not be 3 years, but would be 4 years or something. Oh, and MPU did that too in 2019. Forgot about that. They wanted to change the bylaws because they wanted to keep this person as chair. Be careful with that. Better yet, just don't do that unless that's the will of the body for the organization in general. If the will of the body is to have a 5-year term limit or no term limit, then move forward with it. But if you're only doing that so Andrea Barnett can stay the chairperson another year, not a good idea. Because what are you going to do when Andrea moves out of the city or decides that she doesn't want to be chair anymore and steps down? What do you do? Now you're just stuck with these bylaws that say you don't have term limits. It's not a good idea. Don't change it to accommodate one person. Not a good idea. Make sure you distribute the proposed amendments at least 1 month prior to the vote. We discussed that. And again, thoroughly consider the ramifications of each amendment. Think about it thoroughly. If you want a perfect A, this is what you'll do. We always do a perfect A slide in this class, elections class, and all these procedural classes. This is what you do to get a perfect A. You want to have an open, transparent process that invites feedback. You want to announce the date of the meeting when the bylaws are going to be amended. Announce it. You're going to type or print the names of the signers, whoever was on the bylaws committee that year, who at the very least who chaired the bylaws committee that year. True story, not long ago, maybe 6 months or so ago, I had to dig up old bylaws from 2004, I think it was, 4 or 14. No, it wasn't 14. It had to be like 2004. And I was so confused. I had so many questions. And imagine how thrilled I was to see on the last page the name of the person who was the bylaws chair at that time. And this person is still around. So I was able to call them and be like, what did this mean? Was this here before that? Did y'all mean to eliminate this? Is this supposed to be included in this PDF? Because it didn't fit. It didn't make any sense at all. And it was relevant to a bigger problem. So anyway, those things are important. You need to know who the chairperson was at that time. You need to know who the bylaws chair was. And it's even better if you know who all the bylaws committee members are. You're going to list the committee chairperson and the members. You're going to sign and date the approved bylaws. You're going to record the vote on those bylaws. That's important too. Record the vote. Don't forget to attach the code of ordinances and make sure you submit them on or before. Samantha did not change the date on this one, September 30th, 2023. Make sure you submit them on or before September 30th, 2023. And I thought that was it. Oh, there's a game quiz. Okay, let me get ready. All right, this is it, y'all. Grab your phone, because I think we're giving out some prizes, I think. Usually we do that when we have a game here. You'll choose your name. It looks like 20 people already, and I think we had 20 playing, so that's everybody. All right, 21. Anybody else joining? Okay. 24. We got a lot of people playing. All right, we're gonna get started, y'all. 25. Okay, looks like that's it. Okay. So answer quickly if you can. What must be included in every set of bylaws? Look at your phone, multiple choice. You got 12 seconds left. What must be included in every set of bylaws? Everyone has voted. Lovely. 18 people got it right. Okay, good job, y'all. Good job. All righty, let's see who's in the lead. I better be in the lead. I don't even see myself. Tiffany was the fastest. I told y'all about that, Tiffany. All right, Miss Stanley, you were close behind too. You got it right and you were right behind Tiffany. Okay, good job, Angela. Let's move on, y'all. Number 2, grab your phones. Y'all ready? Number 2, let's go. When are bylaws due? When are bylaws due? Oh, this is a tricky one because if you don't spell it the way the correct answer has it spelled, or if you don't format it the way the correct answer is formatted, but we'll see what happens. All right, that's time, y'all. September 30th. See, look at all these right answers that are marked wrong. That's a shame. Just because of the formatting. That should have been multiple choice. How do we move on? Oh, right here. Well, Chandria got it right. And she was the fastest. Okay, Chandria. I think everybody kind of got that one right. I didn't see any wrong answers on that one. I think everybody got it right. All right, and last but not least, oh, okay. Sam, was that the last question? Yes, okay, so that was the last question, I guess. I don't know, but we're just gonna roll with it. We've got some classes coming up this Saturday. If you're already enrolled in the Code Enforcement Academy, it begins this Saturday. This is a 5-week class. It meets every other Saturday from 9 to 12. One of the most valuable classes that I have ever taken. The Code Enforcement Academy is amazing. You learn from every single city department, including Public Works, Watershed, Parks and Rec, and the Department of City Planning, as well as the courts, the police, fire. Everybody comes out, and 311 as well, and talks about their role in code enforcement. Really, really great class that again begins on Saturday, this coming Saturday from 9 to 12. And it's every other Saturday from 9 to 12 until August 5th. We've got 2 neighborhood empowerment workshops coming up. Those are on the 24th. Not really going to talk about that too much right now, but you can find more information on our website. The legislative process on June 29th, which is a really, really well attended class every year. It's a great class. Election integrity, July 5th, zoning fundamentals lab. That's only if you've already taken zoning 1 and zoning 2. So you have to have taken zoning fundamentals 1 and zoning fundamentals 2 in order to take the lab. We've got civic engagement for young adults. This class is for rising high school seniors and rising high school juniors. They will spend a whole week with us here at City Hall, and they will, excuse me, they will learn a little bit about every department here in the city. They will tackle a problem of their choosing. They will write legislation. They will have a mock council meeting, and it's going to be a really, really great week. They'll get to meet some of the movers and shakers of City Hall and do a couple of tours of some of the city facilities, etc. If you have a young person, rising high school senior or junior that might be interested in hanging out with me for a week, please make sure you direct them to the website to apply for the civic engagement for young adults. That's CP 1005. And then we've got the Atlanta Community Engagement Playbook, another one of my favorite classes. Yeah, so it's a great class. It is taught, I had a playbook nearby me, but more information on that is also on our website. That's an in-person class that really gives a literal and figurative playbook for community engagement and how to engage your neighbors, how you should be engaged when other people are seeking to engage you. These are the plays that you should require of them. This is how you can engage your own neighbors, etc. It's a really, really good and useful book for engagement. And last but not least, follow this amazing team at NPU Atlanta on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, or on Neighborhood Planning Units on Nextdoor. And I believe that that is the end of this class. I'm going to stop sharing. I hope that you have all enjoyed the class. I am happy to take any other questions if there are any. Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'm not seeing any questions. I did take questions throughout the whole class. So Nicole, what's your question, ma'am?
When it comes to voter eligibility, we always end up with the question of property owners that are renting their home to others, but they don't actually live in the NPU. Do they count as like a business owner because they're actually making a profit, or would they have to actually have a business? What's the general guidelines?
So that's actually interesting because I had that question not long ago. I'm going to pull up the code. Actually, I have it open, so I'm just going to open it and read it to you word for word. Okay. And by the way, if no one else has any other questions, or you're not interested in hearing the answer to this question, the class is dismissed and you're free to go. Nicole, the code defines a resident, and that is a member of the NPU, as any person 18 years of age or older whose primary place of residence is within the NPU or any corporation, organization, institution, or agency which owns property or has a place of business or profession within the NPU. So
my understanding of that would be if like an LLC owns property, that's an entity, even though that's not their primary location of the business.
That's correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Not a person though, an organization, agency. Let me quote it exactly. Corporation, organization, institution, or agency. An LLC is a corporation, so. Mr. Barnett.
Good evening, Leah, and my other beautiful neighbors of the city of Atlanta. Question for you. Obviously, the NPU can't limit the ability for a member, a resident, a member of the NPU to be able to vote on the bylaws. But can the bylaws themselves limit the capacity of a member to conduct business on the bylaws themselves? That is to say, more specifically, can the bylaws restrict making motions or to propose an amendment, to take an actual action? Can the bylaws restrict that activity to only the board members versus the entire membership of the NPU?
Do you mean at the meeting where bylaws are being voted on, or do you mean in advance of the meeting?
Let's just say yes to both scenarios.
So in advance of the meeting, and let me preface this by saying I am not an attorney, and so I don't interpret the code, but I have a pretty decent understanding of the code, especially for my area, my section of the code. And I will confirm my answer to this question with our law department. So let me just say that. I'm going to read to you the code, and then I'm going to tell you what I think. All neighborhood planning units shall have bylaws for their members to follow, which shall be approved annually by a majority of the residents, as defined in section 6-3012 of the MPU, in attendance at the meeting where the bylaws are voted upon. At said meeting, there shall be no restrictions upon a resident's right to vote on the approval or disapproval of the bylaws. There's more, but the part that's relevant to your question is, at said meeting, at the meeting where the bylaws are voted on, there shall be no restrictions on a resident's right to vote on the approval or disapproval of the bylaws.
Okay. Yeah, I
That's
think
what the
that
code
answers it.
protects. The code protects your right to vote on the approval or the disapproval of the bylaws at the meeting where the bylaws are being voted on.
Perfect. All right. Thank you. Appreciate that.
My pleasure. Glad I could help. Any other questions? DCP approved what, Mr. Martin? What you talking about? What you talking about, Mr. Martin? We have had 2 people who thought that they should get 2 votes. No, that the bylaws can state the amendment process for bylaws as long as that doesn't conflict with code. That's correct. 2/3 for amendment, it's not majority. DCP. Yeah, no, I actually, so I don't want to have this conversation right now, but we just had this conversation earlier today, not even in relation to this class, but in relation to an onboarding conversation with a new staff member, new member of our team. We talked about the whole DCP approved that, because we hear that so much. Well, DCP approved those bylaws. DCP stands for the Department of City Planning, for those of you that may not know. Well, planning approved those bylaws. That's a little sticky. Again, not going to get into that tonight, but the code authorizes planning to approve bylaws for 3 things. For those 3 things. In previous times, indeed, the department was stamping bylaws approved, and I don't know what the intent was. I believe the intent was to stamp it approved for these 3 things, and all MPUs took that to mean our bylaws have been approved by DCP. No, planning does have to approve the bylaws for sure, for those 3 things. For those 3 things. Per the code. That's what the code says. I go by the code. I don't make up my own rules. I go by the code. All right. Any other questions or anything else from anybody else?
Yes.
Who's that? Who said yes?
Wanda.
Hey, Ms. Whiteside, what's up?
Hi there. Great facilitation. Thank you so very much. I did leave me with a couple questions, and one of them is the code that you keep referring to. What is the number and where do I find it?
I will drop the link in the chat.
Okay. All right. Number 2.
I shortly call it Article B. Just in short, I call it Article B because that's the beginning section. But yeah, I'll drop the link.
I kept going in and out, but thank you. I kept going in and out, but the one thing I did recall you saying is that the bylaw, how can the bylaws encourage participation? And I don't know if I captured that. Could you just, how the bylaws encourage participation?
Yeah, so
yes.
Jared, you must have been listening to our conversation today, because that's exactly what we said. Like approving it for those 3 things doesn't mean that we endorse everything that's in it, because there's a lot of problematic stuff in these bylaws. And frankly, just being transparent with y'all, as I typically am, we do not have the capacity to correct everything that is wrong in 25 sets of bylaws. We usually grab the things that are most problematic or that could cause real problems and try to get MPUs to fix those things. But there are lots of things in MPU bylaws that need to be fixed in a way. Like if I had a staff of 25, I'd be fixing probably all of them, recommending fixes, I mean, for probably all of them. But yeah, we don't really have the ability to do that. So Ms. Wanda, the question was, how can bylaws be used to promote participation and representation, right? Your bylaws can be written in a way that promotes participation, whether it is by allowing a neighborhood to make the first recommendation or to make the first motion on a matter, or by requiring for restricting requirements. Some MPUs, when I first started here, I had one MPU that required people to attend 6 meetings to vote. 6 meetings. That's a lot. And a lot of people don't go to 6 meetings. So it's a lot. And it's especially a lot when you have on that same spectrum, on that same map, an MPU that doesn't have any voting requirements. If you live there, you can vote. If you never came before, it doesn't matter. You can vote on the variance application or the whatever application. You have some MPUs that have representative style governance, meaning the members, the individual members don't vote. The members have a representative on the board that votes for them. So if I live in ABC neighborhood, there's a representative from ABC neighborhood on the MPU board, and that person votes on my behalf and all my neighbors' behalf. That's fine as long as it works. It doesn't always work as intended. And no, that's not what I want to say. What I want to say is that can't work everywhere. It works where it works, but it can't work everywhere. It takes a lot of work to pull that off, because if a neighborhood is not inclusive itself, if it's not participatory, then you've got one person that's voting on behalf of all these people without necessarily hearing them or hearing from them, as opposed to these people having the right to vote for themselves. So yeah, there are lots and lots of ways. I mean, truly, I could list probably 100 off the top of my head of ways that your bylaws can be used to promote participation and representation.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, any other questions? Jared.